This is not going to be a sermon about corn dogs, although that's pretty much what's been on my mind the last 3 days. We're going to end up selling probably 3,000 corn dogs at the county fair to assist with mission work for folks. So those who volunteered with me are probably having nightmares of corn dogs with legs chasing them around or something.
Known as deep fried breadsticks.
I'm reading this morning from the Gospel according to St. Matthew. Hear this parable of Jesus. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the household came and said to the master, "Do you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Did you want us to go out and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you will uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then he left the crowds, and he went to the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seeds are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers. And they will be thrown into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." Well, there are two closely related and almost universal truths which cause people all kinds of frustration, guilt, and pain. The first myth is that if we are good enough and if we're wise enough, we'll never have any serious problems. Let me say that again. The first myth is if we're good enough and wise enough, we'll never have serious problems. That's a myth. The second myth is that love, and love alone, will conquer any problem that arises. Love and love alone will conquer any problem that arises. The real truth is that we are an imperfect people in an imperfect world. And love simply does not conquer all. While it's simplistic, and we have a lot of phrases and songs and poems about it, the reality of it is, it's a myth. And whenever we have these myths built into us in our consciousness and they fail us, what do? We blame ourselves. We blame ourselves. We forget that the problem lies beyond things that we have any control about, because sometimes in real life there are problems in us and around us that are beyond our power to ever correct and to ever prevent. One of the most practical parables that Jesus told was the parable of the wheat and the tares, or the wheat and the weeds. The word tares is a type of weed. It's a poisonous weed called the bearded darnel. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. I didn't Google it up to see what that looked like, but maybe you won't. What happens in the early stages of its growth, they really kind of closely resemble the wheat coming up. So you really can't tell the difference between whether it's this bearded darnel or wheat coming up in the field. And by the time you can actually distinguish it, it's taken such deep root that if you did anything to them, you would damage both because they kind of intertwine themselves. You guys have any weeds in your garden now? And they kind of, it's hard to, I know sometimes we go out and I look and we're going to weed in our flower bed. I'm thinking, is this a flower or is this a weed? You know, sometimes I can't tell the difference. That's what happens with these. You can't tell whether they're weeds or not. And so sometimes, especially in wheat fields and other types of agricultural fields, you actually have to wait till it's harvest time before you can do anything with it. You just have to go ahead and let them go. You have to go ahead and let them go. In the parable that Jesus teaches today, he talks about a farmer who very intentionally went out and sowed good seed. He intentionally went out and sowed good wheat seed. He wanted there to be good wheat growth. He didn't go out and sow weeds. But when the crops began to mature some, he noticed very obviously, wow, there's weeds in here with the wheat. And even though the servants asked, we'll go ahead and pull these out for you, he told them, no, let's wait till harvest time, because they have become entangled. Kind of in your mind, these people in ancient times, this diabolical picture of these enemy tars, these bearded darnel growing in the wheat, kind of picture that in your mind. The people of Galilee who heard this parable for the first time would have known that. When they're growing weeds, they would have already been aware of the fact that this is something that happened to them. And in fact, it was so evident that if you were someone who threw this bearded darnel into a wheat field, it was a Roman crime. Toby would have been coming and arresting you. He would have said, hey, I got to arrest somebody. I'll be back to the meeting in a while. So it was a codified Roman law that you could not plant the wheat and then somebody throw it in there. It was a crime. So the disciples were somewhat puzzled by the parable and asked Jesus to explain it. And that second part of the story is him explaining it to them, talking about the end of the age and about the angels of God, how they will separate evil from good. He tried to make it pretty clear to the disciples, and I guess pretty clear to us, what the parable is. The problem is, it's not that easy. The parable helped us to understand why the tars were in the field, right? That the enemy threw them in there. And one of the last things that Jesus says, because the disciples understood that, the people who heard this understood it, one of the last things that Jesus said in John 16:33, in the world you will always have trouble. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. So when Matthew's telling us a story, he doesn't fluff it up to tell us that I'm promising you, if you follow Jesus, if you love God, everything's going to be okay. That's not the message in this story, right? He never promises that that will happen. Things in this world happen beyond our power to prevent them, beyond our power to fix them. I know each one of you can think of things that have happened in your life, to friends of you, things in the world that you look at that you already know. There's nothing I could have done to prevent this. There's nothing I could have done to change this. I've been at hospitals when I was a chaplain with teenagers and children who were dying and who took their last breath. And although there were a team of doctors working vigorously, the reality of it was there was nothing they could do to prevent that child from getting that illness, and there was nothing they could do to prevent that child from dying. There are a multitude of things that happen to us in life that are like things that we cannot prevent, things that we cannot fix. One of the things that happens to us, though, because those things are going to happen to us in our lives, that we start blaming ourselves or blaming others. So all of a sudden you have guilt and blame and shame. And Nick, you're a counselor, what's that do? Complicates the problem, right?
Amen.
Complicates the problem. The reality of it is we live in an imperfect world and evil does exist. It's an unavoidable part of our life. And another part of this parable that Jesus tells the crowds and explains to disciples is, for a lot of these things, there's nothing you can do about it. You can have all the good intentions in the world. You can get out here and work your tail off to the bone, and it doesn't matter. You can try to save somebody. You see them, say, this person's lost, and I want to help them get their life turned around. Get them to be a productive person in our nation. Be happy and healthy. And there's nothing you can do about it. We live in an imperfect world. Thornton Wilder, in his story, The Bridge of St. Louis Ray, talks about the knots that no mortal can untie. We have knots that we just simply can't untie. We are people who live in a country where everything's a quick fix. We have cell phones and televisions and et cetera, and if we have something broken, we want it fixed right now. If we see something wrong, we want it resolved right now. Now, I look at all the crime we have in Indianapolis, and I think, boy, why can't we do anything about this? But then I remember, although I'm an intelligent guy, there are folks that are way smarter than me, and they haven't figured it out. Huh? It's not an easy fix.
Amen.
I mean, cancer's not a new thing. Cancer's been around for quite some time now. And while we have been able to cure and sustain some cancers, there's still a lot of cancers that if the doctor tells you this is the cancer you have, I can tell you right now, 6 months from now, you're out of here. There's nothing they can do about it. There are some knots that we simply cannot untie. There's some things that are not quick fixes. We simply cannot live in a world and in a life that's pain-free. Life is not pain-free. The avoidance of pain, which we try to do, because we take all kinds of pain medicine, we do all kinds of things to hide that pain. You know, some people drink it away, some people use narcotics, some people do sexual things, the whole list of things. Nick would know more about that than I, but because of his counseling experience, but we have this whole list of things that people do to try to avoid pain that exists in their life, but really none of those things make the pain go away.
Amen.
It just hides it. The pain's still there. It's just hidden. It makes you avoid it because you don't have too much guilt, too much shame while you're dealing with it. You just avoid it. I mean, professionals in the healthcare industry and counseling are constantly confronted with people who demand, who are willing to pay much money to have a simple solution to a problem that is unbelievably complex and sometimes impossible to fix. Life is not a bowl full of cherries. There's times when nothing can be done. We have these tangles in our life, and sometimes that we can't get out of. People recognize that. The playwright Shakespeare, if you read some of his early plays, his stories always end with some kind of a fix. I don't know how many people read Shakespeare, but if you do his early stories, there's always some kind of resolution. But as they grow older, you know, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, the problems are so complex that at the end of the play, there's no closure really. Just kind of keep you hanging, because in our world, that's the way a lot of life is. And that's kind of the story Jesus is telling you, that in this parable, there are some things in life that you can't fix, that you can't control. But Jesus goes on with that awareness that we can't fix everything, that we can't prevent everything, that we should not lose hope. Just because there's no easy answers doesn't mean there are no answers. The solution is not a quick fix. Instead, Jesus is saying it's a lifelong journey of faith and hope. Can't give you a quick fix. We're not going to go out and pull the weeds out right now, because they're probably so deeply rooted that it's popped back up anyhow. But if you wait until all the crop is in, fully grown, or our lifetime journey, and you keep yourself faithful, you keep loving, there is a fix. It's not easy, it's not quick. And in fact, the reality of it is, it defies explanation. I can't even tell you about it. I can't describe it to you. We have an obligation as Christians to make that story aware to other folks. There's a story, let me share it with you briefly here. The very first African-American baseball player, anybody know what his name was?
No.
Larry Doby, the very first one. 1947, he played for the Cleveland Indians. He was a really good baseball player and a really good hitter. So the very first time he came to bat, he went up, strike one. I mean, he missed the ball by 2 feet. Strike two, missed it even more. Strike three, he missed it even more. The crowd booed him, and he walked back to the dugout with his head hung low, went to the end of the bench, put his hand in his head, and just sat there. The next batter up was a guy named Joe Gordon. He was an all-star hitter. And he knew this particular pitcher who was throwing to him pretty well, which is part of the game, so he knew where the pitches were going to lay. And everyone knew he wouldn't have any trouble. Joe would hit the ball. The first pitch came, and Joe missed it completely. Second pitch came, and he missed it completely too. And the third pitch came, and he swung and missed it by 2 feet. The crowd was completely silent. Joe stared at the ground, walked back to the dugout, went to the end of the bench, sat down by Larry Doby, and put his head in his hands. This is stuff that legends are made of, stuff you see on ESPN Legends or stories. No one knows for sure whether or not Joe Gordon struck out on purpose. But I can tell you this much. It's reported that on that day, when Larry Doby struck out and Joe Gordon followed him, that it caused Larry Doby to every time he went onto the baseball field that he would never fail to reach down and pick up the glove for his teammate Joe Gordon and hand it to him. Seems like a small thing, but it's a manner of love. It's a story about loving others, about taking in some of their hurt and pain, some of their anguish, some of those things that they cannot fix, some of those things they can't prevent, and being with someone else, being present for them. I bet you money, because I know you do people, that some of you have done things for others with problems and situations and events in their life that they can't fix. Things they can't prevent. And while you couldn't fix them and couldn't prevent them either, you were still there with them. You picked their baseball glove up, so to speak, or you took their pain in. You cried with them. I've seen my good folks over at the Ronald McDonald House when people are sharing stories with us about their small children, showing us photos of their children who are dying or infants. I've seen my people cry along with them. They didn't even know this child. But they're journeying with them in their life on problems that can't be fixed, problems that can't be resolved, problems that can't be prevented. If you've done all you can do, you just have to wait for the harvest. And God will finish the job at harvest time. That's the story. Jesus told us there's going to be trouble in this world, folks. But he adds on some encouragement. Take courage in knowing that I will be present with you. I have the outcome already in mind. Something you can't control. Something you can't prevent. Martin Luther wrote this, I think, in one of his great hymns. A mighty fortress is our God. A bulwark never failing. Did we in our own strength confide? Striving will be losing. I cannot fix you. You cannot fix me. You cannot fix the world. Ultimately, faith in myself, faith in yourself, faith in any human being won't fix or prevent things. We have to wait for the Lord of the harvest. And the Lord of the harvest will fix things when they come. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Praise
Praise
be to
God.
God.